Salutations, respected viewers. I am George from Ireland. So this video is about the Irish election. So there has been an election to the 33rd Dáil. Now, if you're not Irish, you probably wouldn't know what the Dáil is. That is the lower house of the Irish Parliament. So the Oireachtas is the Parliament of the Republic of Ireland. When I say Irish, I'm referring to the 26 counties, the major portion of Ireland, which has 80% of the land area and 70% of the population. So it's been a seminal election. The big story is that the duopoly have had their dominance broken. Okay, since the foundation of the modern Irish state in 1922, there have been two parties which have been the two major ones. And it's been one of those two parties every single time. Well, actually, and then the Labour Party is the third party every single time. And then Labour obviously overtook Fianna Fáil in 2011. But apart from that, that was the only blip. Although for 90 years up until that time, it was those three parties. Now there's Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, and then the Labour Party. Now Fine Gael used to be called Cumann na Gael long ago. In the 1930s, a couple of other parties merged into it. The Farmers' Party, the Ratepayers' Party, some of the Blue Shirts, indeed. So Sinn Féin has broken through. That's the hardline nationalist party, has become the largest party in the Republic of Ireland. They're the second largest one in Northern Ireland, and they're the only party which contests elections throughout the island. So they are the largest party in Ireland, but of course they got the advantage because they stand for election in both jurisdictions. They're the only 32 county party, as they often boast. So the Taoiseach is Dr. Leo Varadkar, as in he's a physician, and he's of the Fine Gael party, which is an ardently Europhile party. We could say centre-right, capitalist, liberal on ethical issues. And his real claim to fame is that he met me absolutely years ago. Oh my God, that's 20 years ago I met him. And he's just the same one-on-one as he is in public. So don't agree with him that much, but he's certainly a man of unimpeachable personal probity. So it's likely that he will continue in government. Even if he's not Taoiseach, certainly his party quite likely in a coalition with Fianna Fáil. So anyway, so Sinn Féin was founded about 1905, but there was actually a magazine in County Meath, Sinn Féin of the Oldcastle Review, as ourselves alone, as this hardline nationalist publication. Now, in the south of Ireland, a great majority of people were nationalists of some stripe or other, wanted some degree of autonomy for Ireland. I'm Irish, unfortunately, a lot of our people seem to believe Sinn Féin are a nationalist party. They're anything but. I suppose they're a Euro-nationalist party. They bang on about nationalism, they fly the tricolour, almost as though it's their party emblem, when it's for everyone, it's for me, and I'm a unionist. So whether you like them or dislike them, that is your flag. So don't try and co-opt it as a party emblem. That's highly inappropriate and offensive. So we don't want to go into history at all too much, but the 1916 Rising, and then as the Irish Times said, Sinn Féin Rebellion in Dublin. And of course, almost nobody ever heard of them. They were a lunatic fringe sect. But then they became centre stage, and there was the Irish Republican Army, and Sinn Féin was really their political face. Often the IRA were called the Sinn Féin Volunteers. The two words were used interchangeably. But anyway, there's this treaty in 1921. Some majority of Sinn Féin TDs actually accepted it. A minority didn't, but they kept the name. And the people who accepted it were called Cumann na Gael. And then there was another schism within Sinn Féin in 1926 when almost half of them, led by Eamon de Valera, broke off, found Fianna Fáil as in Warriors of Destiny, which was the party which was to dominate Irish politics for the next 80 years. So 1932, Eamon de Valera coming in as Taoiseach, that's Prime Minister, with Fianna Fáil, and he's been in office most of Fianna Fáil been in office most of the time. Fine Gael only ever allowed to be able to be in office if they're sustained by minor parties, so we have coalitions usually. So Sinn Féin's now the largest party with 25% of the vote, so big gain for them. So they got 36 seats in the Dáil Éireann, whereas Fianna Fáil, which until 2011 was in government most of the time, and they suffered a crushing defeat that year, when Enda Kenny came in at Taoiseach with Fianna Fáil, is out of the credit crunch, and we were NAMA standing for National Assets Management Agency. so many goes to state, some of these had to be sold off. But anyway, Fianna Fáil only slightly behind them on share of the vote, 22%, but only 27 TDs, a Teachta Dála, as in, well, like a deputy in the Dáil. And what people in the Dáil area, they're called, well, TDs for short. I can't remember what the proper way to say the plural is in Irish. Is it Teachta Dálaí? Forgive me, I'm no Gael Gore, because I never had a single lesson in Ireland. Anyway, so never mind in the Irish language. So the only GAA match I've ever attended is the Oxford-Cambridge match. Yeah, Leo Varadkar, he's a Fine Gael, and his party's on 21% of the vote, so a shade behind Fianna Fáil, but they've got more seats, 29. So it's not strictly proportional. We have this single transferable vote, which I think is a fabulous system. And I really try and lay aside national chauvinism and just assess these things objectively. So things could look fantastic for Ireland, they could look terrible, more likely to look somewhere in between. It's difficult to detach myself and be unemotional about my birthplace. So in Ireland, you rank the candidates in order of preference. So your first choice of the many people on the ballot paper, you write number 1, your second choice number 2, your third choice number 3 and 4, and so on until you've exhausted your choices. You don't have to use all your choices. Suppose there are 10 candidates. You could choose only 8 of them, or only 3 of them, or just 1 of them, as you wish. And your lower preferences can't hurt your higher preferences because people are eliminated and votes are redistributed. It's quite complicated. And we have these multi-seater constituencies. Constituencies either have 3 or 5 Teachta Dálaí, depending on the size of the population. They try and do it on a county basis. They'll be, say, Kerry North and Kerry South. Or a county might be, let's say, I don't know, if it's Longford. Just Longford as a constituency. That's it, one constituency for County Longford. Or for constituencies of a very small population, they can amalgamate them, like Cavan Monaghan, and so forth. So Micheál Martin, he comes from Cork. He went to Presentation Brothers College and University College Cork. So and he speaks with a noticeable Cork accent. Hello there, Ringer Thomas. So he took over, well, he led his party after 2011. There were a lot of rats deserting the sinking ship, but he calculated it would be his advantage to stay there. I think United Ireland is now closer than ever with Sinn Féin in power in the Republic and Northern Ireland. I mean, they were pushing for unity referendum. She wants one in 5 years. Well, it shows a sort of lack of confidence. Why not say now, if being part of the United Kingdom is so outrageously oppressive, you should have wanted one yesterday. So I don't think that then it's going to happen. Otherwise, they say now, they're seeing how Brexit goes. What if Brexit's a fabulous success and the UK economy grows and things are tranquil? The moment it's not that placid, the dissident Republicans are saying, we're going to kill people, trying to set off a bomb the other day. A strategy of tension. Did you vote to leave? No, I did not. I was not registered to vote in the United Kingdom. The Republic of Ireland, I believe we have this correct. Being a citizen is not enough to vote. You must actually be resident of the country because you're not fully plugged into what's happening. I know with the internet it's easier to keep abreast of political événements these days, but it doesn't actually impact you, especially not paying taxation. You're half Polish, all right. And do you live in Ireland then? I'm not Polish at all, I'm afraid. I've been there quite a few times. I've eaten Polish sausages, hunter chicken and whatnot. Now, that's the thing in Ireland, people whinging about us being the most oppressed people ever. We have had some tristful chapters in our Ireland story. But compared to Poland, for example, really it's been Debbie paradisical. Poland's a country that's really been put through the ringer. My God, suffered the most unspeakable agony. But back to Hibernia. So, and Sinn Féin gained, but at the expense of who? Well, the two major parties, Fianna Fáil fell slightly, and Fine Gael fell as well. But so Fianna Fáil are now back as the are kind of somewhat recovered since 2011, since they were absolute hammering because they were blamed for so mismanaging the economy, and they rightly carried the can for that. So he's been leader of the opposition for a long time, Micheál Martin. Notably, he hasn't been booted out for what he did. So it was they were kind of flatliners. He was leading them back from this near-death experience of the 2011 legislative election. So Dr. Varadkar has been Taoiseach for about 3 years now, and managed it reasonably well. He couldn't be outflanked on nationalism in a sense by Sinn Féin or Fianna Fáil, giving London a fairly hard time, but always in a very courteous manner. He's quite a reasonable chap. I remember 20 years ago, who was it said, one of the Fine Gael TDs said, Fianna Fáil are the Nationalist Party, we're the Internationalist Party. It's really kind of European nationalism. You're not from Ireland, you're from Twickenham. Oh, I see. Well, I've been around Twickenham, as you might have observed from some of my videos. And then the Green Party, they've gained significantly, they've more than doubled their vote. okay, but they've only got a tiny amount of representation. They've only got 3 seats, is it, in Dáil Éireann, and the Labour Party, they were actually quite a minor party, but they suffered. They're very weak now, on only 4% of the vote. So I suppose a lot of the left wingers are now voting Sinn Féin, and then there are some very minor parties like the far left parties like the Social Democrats. I suppose they should merge. Anyway, there are lots of independents elected because we're quite a small country and we have quite small constituencies. We have about 160 people in Dáil Éireann. So in your constituency, I'm just trying to think how many constituencies are there. Roughly 40. So I'm just thinking of our population is not quite 4 million. So our constituency is quite small, like 60,000 people, 50,000 people in some cases. The chance you're a TD personally is quite high, especially you can have at least 3 of them. And so that's why an independent really can have a following in a locality. And these seats are almost hereditary in our rotten boroughs, as it were, because if a TD dies, his wife or his daughter or whatever takes over, or she dies, and her son or her brother or whatever quite often stands again for the same party. Indeed, I suppose one of the luminaries of Fine Gael, Simon Coveney, that's the case with him. In 1988, his father, Hugh Coveney, died, and Simon Coveney, then aged, I think, 26, stood for and won that constituency in Cork. So what's going to happen? Now, the 2 major parties, they want to keep Sinn Féin out. That's the thing is Sinn Féin obviously been part of the Northern Ireland Executive for a long time now. Why is it they're permissible in the north, but they're totally unacceptable in the south? I don't see why there's anathema. I mean, I dislike them, but they're not abominable. Micheál Martin says he wouldn't exclude the possibility of working with them. But it is possible to form a stable government without them. So the 2 major parties set aside their differences and for the very first time form a coalition. As I say, we've had a coalition loads. As Disraeli said, England does not love a coalition, but Ireland does, evidently. Like there was the Rainbow Coalition in the early 90s when John Bruton was Taoiseach. Sinn Féin, about 10 years ago, I thought they were going to have a breakthrough because we were really struggling after credit crunch. McDonald says the reason she isn't pushing for poll now is because she needs a plan for a UI, 5-year plan for unity. Does Northern Ireland want vote for unity? I think not, narrowly. Well, you've been planning for like a century. Why are you putting it back? You clearly don't believe you're going to win. If it's so outrageous, so unfair and unjust and illegitimate, you should have it already. But I think she believes that she would lose, which would kill the issue for a generation. Though I remember almost 20 years ago, David Trimble saying, let's have it now, because he knew the Unionists would win, and that was it. But then, of course, we had the Good Friday Agreement, a vote held on the same day throughout the whole of Ireland, and 85% of people voted for partition. That's right, the Good Friday Agreement, explicitly saying Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. So partition is wildly popular. No referendum in North or South has ever been passed by such a large margin. And the people who voted against it were hardline unionists, mostly. Very few nationalists voted against it. So Northern Ireland would only leave the UK and merge with the Republic if and when a majority of people wanted that. So it left open the possibility that this could happen. But that's been the case. That was the case for almost a century prior to that. Well, since the 1920s, when His Majesty's government said, Northern Ireland's part of the United Kingdom, unless the Parliament in Northern Ireland decides otherwise. Went into referenda back then. There'd never been one anywhere in the British Isles up until that time. People said it's a dictator's trick. Look at Napoleon. He held all these utterly fraudulent elections. We shan't have that kind of charade here. And then I had some of these sort of arguments advanced after the Brexit referendum. Oh, it was only advisory. Sure, it was. Okay, it wasn't a plebiscite. It wasn't legally binding. But that's the thing about the Republic of Ireland. We, according to our constitution, we're required to have a referendum every time there's an amendment to the constitution. And so we have them. And then Dáil Éireann is supposed to, the Oireachtas, both houses, are supposed to legislate on that basis. But what if they don't? What consequences will flow? Like the one about abortion, and then legislation was passed along those lines. It wasn't absolutely explicit what the legislation was going to be. So there's some sort of margin of error. There's some room for interpretation. Have I watched my YouTube channel? Ringer Thomas, I must confess I have not. So the Cian Cummerle is standing down. He's the speaker of Dáil Éireann. Cian being like head, but he's got a constituency. Although the odd thing is he's not elected. He's just ex officio gets elected. So a bit different from the House of Commons. Anything else that is different? That's that. So yeah, Sinn Féin, I mean, they're United Ireland, but they've got the two faces of Janus. Implementing retrenchment in Northern Ireland whilst railing against, austerity in the Republic of Ireland, saying it's not worked. Well, it has worked. It nursed us back to economic health, and we've been steadily growing since, my goodness, is it 2011? London has abandoned NI. Well, it's not abandoned NI. It's still part of the United Kingdom. I'm not going to get into this. Northern Ireland's been a special case for 100 years, often been a little bit different. And that's the thing about the United Kingdom, is not all four parts, they don't have to be exactly the same. You can do different things for different parts. So Sinn Féin, notably, they're in maybe North Dublin, the more working class areas of Dublin, they did fine. And some of the areas near the border, the odd constituency here or there, was difficult to simplify. But Fianna Fáil did a bit better in the east of the country. And that's the thing about Fine Gael's support, is it's sort of spread. It doesn't have a geographical area. Labour don't have many, didn't do particularly well in any part of the country. So Mary Lou McDonald has led Sinn Féin for quite a few years, and I'm very glad that they've passed on the baton from that Troubles generation. We don't need to talk about that. What I think of Boris Johnson, well, I think I made videos about him elsewhere. He's a complete, chancer and a charlatan. He's obviously as many laughs as a barrel of monkeys. He's got a certain low cunning. He has a way with words, so I don't trust him as far as I could punch him. I find him very entertaining. But actually, I just today for work, I was speaking to someone who knew him at prep school and indeed at Eton, saying, well, he was always just the same. He was frightfully clever, but he's an arriviste, and he believes in precisely one principle, and that's Boris Johnson. He doesn't care about anything else, utterly disloyal, and ruthless, backstabbing, deceitful. So that's it. See how he's treated people in his life. Did Sinn Féin do very well this year? They did badly last year. They've done quite well. So I thought they'd missed the boat because they hadn't broken through when the economy was screaming. And they were offering easy solutions, free money. Oh, we'll just spend more money and borrow. But no, financial discipline held. We had to be fiscally conservative, and that's worked. But now that things return to growth, people are voting for Sinn Féin. And one day they're going to win. Well, they have won. I've been saying for several years, one day they'll win, and it won't be a calamity. And they can go in government, and they won't be able to deliver all their impossible promises. They're just like any other party. But what goes up must come down. You can't win them all. So Fine Gael have had their longest period in government since, 1922 to 1932. The great betrayal of Ulster. Unionists are always saying this, even since the Second World War, or since before the First World War, and talk about home rule. Somehow, after 100 years of so-called betrayal, Northern Ireland's still in the United Kingdom. So it's possible Northern Ireland might leave the UK, but that's not going to be because of betrayal. If London really wanted to throw Northern Ireland to the wolves, it would have done so a very long time ago. Okay, so not all the results are in from the Republic of Ireland, so the figures will change. Will go up a little bit. But I think the overall picture is quite clear. Sinn Féin, as I say, I don't think they're going to be in government this time, but there'll be a major opposition party. But have they peaked, or will we set frustration after a few more years they'll burst through? Because elections, we can go up to 5 years. We almost never do until the next one. So a Brexit is upon us. And that might have helped them because they say, oh, give the Brits a hard time. And, we'll take no prisoners and make sure they don't make life difficult for border communities. So because that's in the air and they're willing to bang that drum and wave the flag, that appeals to many people. And they're quite into environmentalism, into the gay issue. They're very pro-abortion. So they're very tax and spend, and we care about the poor. But they're not that much about nationalism and Anglophobia anymore. So that's my penny's worth on the elections in Dáil Éireann. But Sinn Féin, one day they're going to be the party that provides the Taoiseach, could be the major governing party. It might even be next time. I don't know about the border down the Irish Sea as a betrayal. Well, Northern Ireland's in the UK, and is the only part of the United Kingdom to have a land border with the European Union. And most people in Northern Ireland wanted to stay in the EU, so it's right to take that into account. And Northern Ireland's only 3% of the UK, so the United Kingdom should not do something which is bad for the UK as a whole, just for the sake of 1% of the UK population, which are leavers who live in Northern Ireland. Okay, that's enough for me. Make sure you subscribe, request any videos you want me to make, and book online lessons with me in history, politics, religious studies, English as a foreign language, English literature. Was there anything I didn't mention? Law, French. Choose me as your tour guide in London. Get me to help you with essays, theses, articles, elocution, and interview preparation, debating, and so forth. All right, make sure you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Toodaloo.